Alrighty, and we are rolling in 3, 2. Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George,
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
and what is it? What do I normally?
With our powers
With our
combined.
powers combined.
With our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you
Wow.
visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. A little bit dusty this morning, boys.
Yeah. I was like different day and different time of day has completely fucked your ability to know how we do things. It's like, wait, it's not 4 o'clock on a Sunday. What are words? What's the introduction I've said for this show every fucking week for a decade? It's just completely gone.
In all fairness, we did get together last night and have a couple of daddy juices, so we are a little bit dusty this morning. It's not the usual. It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Which whose idea was that? Terrible.
It's mine.
Terrible idea. What?
I was like,
idea.
nothing can go wrong with this concept of us coming together after having
drinking
drunk
heavily.
Yeah,
I
drinking a fair bit.
I
Because you got a busy weekend, Adam.
So busy.
Yeah, clearly. When we try to reschedule maybe when we actually do the show, and Adam's like, well, I've got a child's birthday party, and I have like 3 brunches somehow, and then dinner tonight.
It's what it
busy
is.
Man.
It's coming up to Christmas time. We're all being let out of the boxes for the first time in 2 years, and everyone's just like, "Do you want to fucking hang out? Do you want to fucking hang out with me? Do you want to fucking hang out? We should all fucking hang out. We should all fucking hang out together. You, me, him, that guy. Let's fucking hang out right now. All of us together in the same room, fucking hanging out."
Yeah, my partner and I.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, my partner Alice and I were talking about it the other day, and she was feeling just like, on top of having a lot of stuff going on, she was like, I just feel really stressed for all the social like interactions and stuff, because it seems like everyone's all like, oh my god, well I have to see you before the end of the year, and she's like, no you don't, no you don't. Like, it was like, I have to see you before the end of the year, because otherwise I won't see you till next year. Next year is 3 weeks away. Like, it hits December 31, and then it's January 1st. It's next year, but it's just a day. Like, you don't need to see me before some arbitrary deadline of the end of the year.
Really need to see you. How's that?
Yeah,
how's that
like-
vibrato in my voice? Yeah, just get that right in there.
I was just gonna.
So I was
Vibrato?
vibrato. That's what we're calling it now.
No, I don't think that's the correct term.
I'm too scared to say vibrato anymore. I used it once, and then also my partner, being a trained opera singer, schooled me in that's not what vibrato is, and I was like, well, yep, cool. That shows me walking in with that white man confidence into that conversation.
I want to tell you about white man confidence in a sec.
All right, George clearly has a gag lined up.
I just wanted to get this fucking joke out for like 30 seconds. Just let me get it out. I know Alice said, obviously, she doesn't need to catch up with people until the new year. I'd just like to say it was lovely seeing her last night, and we're glad she could make it.
Yes, it was lovely seeing
really good
you
seeing
as well. So, yeah, it was really great, but it was no pressure, and that's the point. It was no pressure, like, because if it was suddenly like, oh well, we're not sorry, we're busy, you wouldn't be like, well, fuck, if I can see you by New Year's, like it's over. It's like none of that.
I've just been walking down the street, just yelling at people to catch up. I don't even know these people. I've never seen them before in my life. But
yeah, you, me, coffee next week.
Yeah.
So I wasn't actually with these guys last night. I had my work Christmas party. And,
well, fuck Adam then. All right, mute his mic.
But speaking of white man confidence, there was one of those, like, I just was walking into conversations being like, great, let's just have a conversation, like with people I didn't really know that well.
Just picturing you like guy Spider-Man being like, hey, Steve, how's it going? Like,
literally what I was doing,
bro.
Literally what I was doing. And then I walked
Tyler,
up
how's
to
the
this
Johnson
guy.
account? Nicely done.
Nicely done.
I walked up to this guy and literally was like, hey man, how you doing? I thought I made eye contact with him. And I thought he was one of my customers who is also a guy who works for the business. Anyway, I walked up to him and I was like, and we just started talking, and it became quite clear after about 10 seconds that he was not the guy that I thought he was. So then,
beautiful.
So then I just started to have to sort of transition out of the conversation. So I was like, oh,
this is your idea.
right? And so I was like, maybe I could talk about. Oh, how's the line for the bar? Isn't it? The line for the bar is so long.
Oh god.
Because if it's
And
one
then-
thing that
and then
makes
it
a
became
conversation
clear.
interesting, it's how long the queue is for a
I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, have you been to one of these before?" And he's like, "Oh, no, it's my first one." And then I sort of started to ask more questions. 'Cause I was like, "No, I'm sure you're that guy." Like I doubted myself, and then went back to it. And then it turns out it wasn't. It was actually the guy's brother that I was talking to. So this guy, I
Mm.
was like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Oh, it's Johnny." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You think I'm Sumit, don't you?" I'm like, "Oh." Anyway, so yeah, it's the guy's brother. So they look alike, but I basically went from in the conversation. I was like, I need to commit. Then I need to back out, and then I went back in again. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'll give
you
you my
just, like,
regards. Tell
yeah,
him I said hi. Bye.
White man confidence entering the conversation, realizing you've made a mistake and being like, no, I, Adam Doreen, do not make mistakes. You're definitely the guy I thought you were.
Yeah,
And
and
then turns out it wasn't.
true story. That's how the British invaded India. I was just
Yep.
like, I don't know if we should.
Just-
Yeah, no, we should be here. We should definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're committing. We're
Yeah.
gonna. For 100 years.
Yes, history was indeed written by white man confidence.
Uh huh. Just the
Anyway.
confidence. Obviously, colonialism's bad. Let me just stipulate
Yes,
that up front.
colonialism is very, very bad.
Enslaving an entire, generations of people, and like taking food from them during a famine to
Yeah.
facilitate the war effort, thus resulting in the deaths of millions of people. Obviously, very bad. But
Yeah.
like, you have to admire the confidence of the white man to just turn up in a place and go, "Yeah, this is ours.
Well, this is ours now.
This is ours. Yeah,
Yep.
all that you're standing on, that's ours as well.
All
and
that.
over the horizon,
Yeah.
all of it until it hits the ocean. That's all ours."
Yeah. Nice. It's cute the way you do things, but obviously ours is better. Without learning how you do things in any sort of way, clearly ours is superior because again, white guy.
Yeah, no, I definitely get 60,000 years of continuous historical culture, but have you tried long, tall ships? So
Yeah.
we've got muskets and stuff.
Yeah.
So
They do look very regal. I mean, let's be fair.
Oh, say what you will about the colonialists. Snappy dresses.
that's a very sad. Yeah, like the Nazis' uniforms were designed by Hugo Boss. Like
Hugo
they're
Boss.
very-
Oh yeah,
Fascists are very snappy dresses.
yeah. You always gotta. If you're gonna be committing war crimes or genocides, you gotta look good doing it. You know.
Hitler drove around in a very nice Mercedes. The man, they knew what they were doing.
I was going to make a segue based on that, but that's probably a dumb idea. So I'm
That's
going to go back to my original segue, and I'm going to say, well, you know who else is really dusty because she went out as well as Finland's Prime Minister, Sanna
Yes.
Marin.
Now,
so-
when Adam sent me an article about Finland's prime minister and some sort of scandal, I was assuming some, old white guy in his 70s, and he's been caught having extramarital sex or something like that. I was like, oh, what's happened now? What's the old prime minister of Finland done? Turns out, prime minister of Finland is a 36-year-old woman. And the scandal is that she was out partying, clubbing all night till 4 a.m. When after having come in contact with a COVID-19 case, which was her foreign minister.
Yes.
Now,
I thought we talked about it on the show actually when she was elected. Well, it was big news, like when Finland elected the youngest PM
Yeah.
in the world. Like I think she's the youngest world leader. Yeah, it was. I remember it being a big deal.
I just found it
well,
yeah.
because I was like, she's out. She's also the leader of a country.
Mm.
Like, how does she get stuff done? Like, what? I'd be written off for like a weekend if I was out till 4 a.m. I was out to midnight, and I'm barely
don't know.
scraping by at 10 o'clock today.
Well, maybe in Finland, I don't know. Like maybe if it was, I don't know what day of the week it was that she was out clubbing till 4 a.m. But like I don't know, maybe they get they're quite egalitarian and all that sort of stuff. Maybe she gets Saturdays off. Like maybe she can go out late on a Friday night, and it's like, oh, no PM business has to happen on a Saturday. That's ridiculous. Whilst we're sitting here going like,
Russians
no,
invaded or something.
Oh,
Like, what's she gonna be doing?
yeah, it's like no. What? Parliament doesn't sit on a Saturday.
Well,
Like, you don't have to do anything.
this is the thing. If you elect a 36-year-old or 34-year-old, as when she was elected, if you elect a 34-year-old PM, you have to assume that there are going to be some nights where she's incommunicado because she's hanging out having a party. Like,
I mean,
Nuts.
I don't think even like you have to. I don't know. It's kind of like, are we going to be like reducing that to just like electing someone who's in their 30s? Like, I mean, you've seen the rages that happen whenever a PM gets knifed here. Like those oldies
just
absolutely
like, here we go
decimate
again.
the lodge wine cellar.
yes, I believe that was one of the recommendations in the Kate Jenkins report that came out last week. Is let's take it a little bit easy on the alcohol,
Yeah.
guys. Let's maybe not
Yeah.
get shit faced and break marble tables whenever we
Yeah, I
get
was gonna
served
say
out
it
of
was a
Parliament.
marble table, wasn't it? Like a kind of table got broken once.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, so it was. So I think the context around the Finland PM.
I just want to get this out of the way.
Yeah,
She's a total smoke show. She's like, I've never been attracted to a leader.
It's not. Yeah.
She's-
Okay.
I know it's not like she's a very beautiful woman, and it doesn't color the story at all.
world leaders can be attractive, George.
I know,
I mean, look at like Justin Trudeau, like
Angela Merkel, what? Yeah,
Yeah.
just,
Angela Merkel
Angela
is
Merkel.
a beautiful soul in her own right.
Yes.
So we'll yep. But
Anyway, where I was going with that
It's
was
not.
that in the actual like the issue of the story, because people said, oh, but like she's not apologizing for, oh, I shouldn't have been out till 4 a.m. and now I'm dusty while I'm doing cabinet meetings. It was that people that she was a close contact of a positive COVID case.
Yeah.
But from her comments on it, it was that when she went out clubbing, she did not bring her official phone, like her work phone with her. So when
I
the
didn't bring my
alert
work
came
phone either.
through,
Fair enough.
yeah, when the alert came through that, hey, you have been exposed, where they contacted her on, she didn't get the message. So she was on a dance floor when if she had the phone on her, she would have known and then to leave.
I just
That's where the apology comes from. Yeah, I know, like that's her telling of the story. Do we like yeah, but
She would have had like 3 security guards and probably a
Right.
staffer hanging out the back somewhere.
you're
Like,
the head of the country. No one is like, oh no, where's Sana gone? Like
it's not the 60s. It's not Harold Holt who's just
Yes.
like, I'm going to
Yeah, I'm
disappear to
just
the
gonna
Morning
go for a
Peninsula by myself.
I'm just gonna go for a swim. Just let me know, what happens when I get back. No, you're the prime
but
minister
again, like
of a country.
Finland might just be really chill.
Like, what happened? What would have happened if there was a national crisis,
Yes,
like earthquake,
exactly.
like Russians invading? I don't know why I keep going back. We'll talk about the Russians later anyway. But like, what would have happened if there was a problem that she needed to address in the moment, and she's just like doing a line off some bouncer's arm or something?
Wait,
what?
I would like to clarify. We don't know that there was drug use, but generally,
We have no idea.
we have no idea. Completely speculating. But
Oh,
there's
But like, I don't know. Like maybe I don't know how Finland's parliament works. I don't know if there's like sort of like the designated survivor kind of system. I don't know if there's just a crazy like I don't know, maybe it's a bit more like shared out in the responsibilities that sort of if the prime minister is incommunicado somehow, like they just happen to be on the toilet when the earthquake hits, that someone else is in charge.
okay, but you're
Like,
not
I
on the
don't know.
toilet until 4 a.m. unless you're Elvis Presley. So like, there's like you can't just leave your phone. You can't leave. Like I understand me leaving my work phone at home, like, or not answering calls during the weekend because there are no sales emergencies. No one's like, oh, go fucking get this contract through, otherwise the world's going to explode. It doesn't happen, right? So like, but if you're the leader of a country, you might have to have your work phone on you at all times. Like that's just a thing that you might need to do. Also, they're the rules of your country that you are
you said?
which you are the head of. So you should know what the rules are of the country that you lead.
But is that a rule? Like, I didn't know if it was a rule that she always had to have it on her. Like, I don't know. It just seems like
not that she had to have her phone on her, that she needed to isolate after being a close contact of a COVID-19 case. So she knew her foreign minister was someone who had contracted COVID-19, and then
but my understanding was she didn't at the time that she was out, because like it's one of those things of how we get. Well, I haven't ever gotten it, but I thought you get pinged if you had checked into a place or whatever that had a positive case or all that sort of stuff. That's when the alert goes out. So it was that she hadn't been informed, like they hadn't tested positive until during this night out clubbing.
So
that was my understanding.
she
Like
followed-
maybe I'm
she followed
completely
the
wrong.
advice of
Okay,
the Secretary of State who
Oh.
informed her about the COVID exposure. And then, yeah, so she said that she had a text message later on that basically said that she should have isolated, but I don't know. I
All
think
right,
she's-
but she knew about coming into contact earlier.
I think so.
Under
yeah.
Oh,
Finland's-
okay. Maybe I misread this.
Under Finland's COVID guidelines, anyone who's double jabbed does not need to isolate if they come into contact with a positive case. But the guidelines do advise people to voluntarily avoid social contact if they are waiting for access to a COVID test. So it's not like expressly against the rules, but it is poorly advised.
She should be setting a good
Oh,
example.
well, there we go. So there's the, I don't know, well, that's where the apology comes in, right? Anyway, the where I wanted to go with this is, what we, I know we're not young men anymore and we aren't out clubbing till 4 a.m. But if you were just out clubbing in like late at night and then you turn around and fucking Scotty's just right there having a boogie at like
Doing-
2 or 3 a.m. Like, just
doing
what
a
would
line
that
up
be
and down
like?
some
I know it's like, you know, it's weird in that context of thinking like Scott Morrison, like, you know, middle-aged man, whatever, dancing around in there. But just the idea that you're just out there having a crazy wild Friday night and you turn around and, oh, the Prime Minister is just also there doing exactly what you're doing. It reminds me of a time like, fuck, this would have been at least a decade ago, that a friend of mine in Canberra was doing her Christmas shopping in like a JB Hi-Fi or whatever, and was like flicking through CDs and then bumped into the person next to her and was just like, oh, I'm sorry. And it was Kevin Rudd. Like, while he was Prime Minister, like while he was the Prime Minister, and just like,
Just going to pick up
just
Tina
like,
Arena's
oh,
latest
Kevin
album.
Rudd. And he was like, oh, yep, sorry. And just was doing his thing. And he, I think she noticed that there was maybe like someone further down who was a bit like, oh, hang on. Like, is this woman gonna hurt the Prime Minister? So clearly he had maybe people with him. But just to bump into him while he's doing his Christmas shopping was a really weird experience. It's like, I've seen you from the press conferences and the television.
It's
In
it's fair to
America.
say
Can you imagine?
that
Oh my God, you would get nowhere near Biden while he was doing his Christmas shopping. Like, you know, if you just
four dudes in
Oh,
suits
yeah.
just jump on you.
yeah, if you just bumped into him while shopping for CDs, they'd be like, "Stay on the ground!" and like,
Yeah, you
it'd
get-
like shut down the whole store. You'd be carted off to fucking Guantanamo Bay.
Beer tackled by fucking Terry Crews, like one of those commercials. That was just, you know, cut the cheese whenever you please. Yeah, that's
It's like it's one of the things that like the
Was that Terry
American
Crews?
presidents
Was that?
like have to sneak out of the White House because otherwise they can't.
Yeah,
go anywhere
or
without
I
being-
guess you just have assistants who probably are doing that for you, right? Like, I need this for the first lady, and they just send an aide out there to do it.
I'm corrected. It was Terry Tate, office linebacker, not Terry Crews.
Yes, I was going to say Terry the office linebacker. I have a vague memory, maybe like on this show, with it, about a decade ago, I made that exact mistake, George, and you
Oh, really?
reamed me for
Yeah,
it.
that sounds like the sort of thing I do.
You do the sort of thing of like, what? Do they both look the same to you? Like,
Yeah,
just
that's
grilling me for it. So this is vindication.
Vindication.
Yeah,
That's
Well,
embarrassing.
Scott Morrison may not be out at the club at 4 a.m. Although, look, if he was one day, I mean, suburban Scott, I don't know if it's pretty part of his image makeover. He probably will find him at a pub at sort of 4 in the afternoon, watching
Yes,
some
that's
rugby
more
match. that he
watching
pretends to
But
the
care
Ashes
also-
or something. Yeah.
But looking like he doesn't enjoy the beer he's drinking.
Mm.
You ever notice that whenever you see like the leaders of the parties like having a beer with the common man, they're all
Mm.
like, like, yep, this is beer, all right.
I am
I'm
really
not enjoying it though.
I am really enjoying this natural lager that I definitely consume on a regular basis. Where's that Chateau Latif again? Did we put that aside, or was just can we
Yeah.
just put a little bit of that, sneak it
I
in?
sent an article to you guys the other day, which was just like and it's been well established that just the rebranding of Scott Morrison and trying to sort of make him appealing. It's a whole thing. But anyway, he this week though he's not clubbing, but he is warming up to the next election, which hasn't been officially announced. But the Libs and Labor as well are getting ready for it. Labor have even announced a few policies. Get excited!
Oh, that's how you lose elections, Labour.
Careful, mate. Steady on.
Yep, steady on.
But Scott Morrison has spent this week trying to guilt Gladys Berejiklian into running for the federal seat of Warringah.
I love that the
What a
argument.
strategy.
So Gladys Berejiklian, for those who don't know, a sort of, for some reason, much loved New South Wales Premier, was caught up in a corruption scandal where she had a secret boyfriend and a relationship that she didn't declare, which like is enough according to the code of conduct to be a strike against her, but then proceeded to allegedly shepherd through various grants in her time as treasurer and as leader, and
in
sort of
benefit of
in benefit
the boyfriend's
of her,
electorate.
Yes, corrupt boyfriend's electorate. So all of a sudden, Wagga Wagga is getting a state-of-the-art art center, clay shooting, Eureka Sky Deck, fucking floating cloud city, like Bioshock Infinite style. Floating cloud city all of a sudden all over Wagga Wagga.
You know what?
Very
Cool.
niche reference.
Like, all right. No, I sign off on the corruption if we end up getting a floating cloud city.
I don't hate it. But yeah, so she, obviously ICAC, the Independent Commission Against Corruption, is investigating her, and she resigned of her own accord to make way for that investigation to happen and the people in New South Wales to have a proper full-time premier. But I guess she wasn't hanging out partying like Sanna Marin over in Finland.
No.
So anyway, so the judgment was the too corrupt for state politics, and Scott Morrison saw that and thought, but maybe just corrupt enough for federal politics. That's the kind of level of corruption I like, where you're doing something shitty to benefit your mates. You're not necessarily putting money in your own pocket. It's not like full level corruption. It's just a Diet Coke of alleged corruption. But that's totally
it's
fine.
like, hey, you're clearly, doing all that corruption. We don't bust anyone for that over here. You want to keep that sweet government salary? No ICAC.
So, and it seems like she would be pretty popular in the seat of Warringah, which was Tony Abbott's former seat, now occupied by climate change independent Zali Steagall, who seems to be doing a good job by all accounts. And they're thinking, well, maybe we can capitalize on Berejiklian's latent popularity and get her in there and sort of oust.
Win that seat back.
Win that seat
blue
back.
ribbon seat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a blue ribbon seat if you lost it, mate. So it's
no, but it's still blue ribbon.
Nope. It's a purple ribbon, maybe. It's so yeah. Now it seems like Gladys Berejiklian has thrown some cold water on this idea, saying no thanks. I'd rather go work at a law firm for 5 times my government salary. But I'd much rather engage in the revolving door. Yeah, just doing some consulting. I'm going to give some speeches for Goldman Sachs or something, just like something, some nonsense like that. But so it seems like she's not going to be running.
What was weird was that she never actually came out and said anything. It was just Scott Morrison pushing it from his angle, being like, oh, I'd love it if she... And like, this is the guy...
trying to wag the dog a little bit.
Like, someone's just trying to guilt her into it. Like, I'd love it if she was to run for that seat. I'd love it if she was to do it. And not to mention just completely foregoing the pre-selection process, by the way. Like, whatever other Liberal candidate's been sitting there for 4 years waiting to have a go. Nah, fuck them. Let's get Gladys in. Just paradrop her into the seat.
Anyway. She doesn't want to do it, but... Scotty thought it would be a great idea, so I feel that's important.
Well, like, what part of his head went... I mean, obviously she's popular to a degree, but, like, there's an ongoing investigation. What part of your brain, in terms of the ministerial codes of conduct and everything else, goes, yeah, this would be a great idea to have her...
There's your thing, Adam.
It's literally
you thought what part of your brain considered the ministerial code of conduct? Like, no, you've already... No, Adam, you fundamentally misunderstood what's going on.
Yeah, zero
Scott
parts
Morrison.
of the brain. In terms of the Venn diagram of, like, ministerial codes of conduct and Scott Morrison's brain, they're 2 separate circles on the other side of the street. Like, it is literally...
Yeah.
I think floating this little weather balloon up and seeing, like, what does the press make of it? What do people think of it? Like, does she like it? Is she engaging with the story? Like, is literally just shit stirring the lefties. Like, I literally just think it was just kind of a little hand
Just
grenade.
a political ploy.
Here's a little something for you libtards to get annoyed about and sort of, make a big fuss over and pour barrels of ink,
Damn it, we're doing what they want.
Yeah, we're literally engaging in the exact kind of process that they're wanting to start, right? Is to just like poison the discourse for a week while the election campaign should be focused on the fact that Labor announced a 43% reduction by 2050 in carbon target, in our net.
Yeah, they actually announced like
actually-
a climate change policy
an
Yeah.
actual
of some
policy,
sort.
which
Which
is
planned.
which has plans, and it's
Detail.
like has costings, as like it's all sort of actually laid out, and has the benefit of being backed by like the business council and like not just unions but also like big business and lots of the kind of groups that historically would be fighting tooth and nail against this legislation are like, yeah, no, we like Labor's idea. Like it's given them real political cover for this idea.
Yeah.
And instead we're talking about Gladys Berejiklian not running for the seat of Warring. You know what I mean? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like it's one of those things that's deliberately designed, scientifically
Yeah.
designed to suck up oxygen in the room.
They're just doing gotcha. But it did make me think, like, so she, out of my 13-step process, so she just went through step 8, where she resigned. She has been doing step 9, which is over the next year or two, snipe from the political sidelines at your former colleagues, and either conduct an in-depth interview on 60 Minutes, which makes you look like some hard done by honourable martyr who simply made an innocent mistake, which I think is what she did.
Yep.
She hasn't done the tell-all novel, which is option B. But step 10...
She's the advances in the mail. Don't worry about it.
Step 10...
Random House is booking some meetings.
Prior to the next election, send out your former branch and other political allies, get them to stack a branch in your favour and get pre-selected for the safest seat possible. So we're close.
Yeah,
but
that
obviously
seems like a variation on that step. Like, yeah, they were trying. At least they were trying to
trying.
do that last step.
But she pulled the pin. So, I mean, step 11 was get elected. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, maybe she pulled the pin for because isn't there the other step of it has to have been like at least 12 months or whatever, and then everyone's forgotten about it.
2 years. You've got to snipe for 2 years,
Yeah.
at a minimum, and then you can rerun. If it's too fresh, then next election she might be fair game, or if there's a by-election, she can
Maybe she'd be fair game. But then again, if she's pulling the pin on it now and going into gajillion-dollar law firm or whatever, she's not coming back.
Oh,
Why would you?
I mean, yeah. It's funny. It's one of those things. Like, you look at her and I feel like she's just sick of it. Like in terms of the way she talks about it. Like,
and I'd imagine any premier right now, particularly New South Wales and Victorian premiers, are like, I am sick of this shit. Like, after this 2 years that you've had.
But give her 6 months off where she's doing some droll, as you said, dull speech at the what was it? The
I said Goldman Sachs, but yeah, it could be the Australian fucking Liberty Alliance, or one of the like any sort of fucking 3-letter acronym for fucking think tank nonsense bullshit, coke, oil money, dog shit. Like, it could be any permutation of that, any sort of 4-letter fucking acronym plays.
So when she gets sick of that, and she probably will, because to get to that level of politics, you've got to be sort of a bit on to the attention side of things. That's why Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull can't say die, because they're just constantly wanting extra attention. We might see Gladys come back. We'll see. But anyway.
I hope not. I trust you. Hey, Gladdy. It's George. Hey. I know I've said a lot of things about you. Hey, how's it going? I know I've said a lot of things about you. Deeply unpopular, some would say borderline defamatory things, but borderline, to be clear. But
borderline is not a defense.
Trust your instincts and just just chill out. She needs to chill out. Isn't that what she said? She needs to chill.
She's a chill. Had some time for herself.
That's what she said in her recorded conversations with Darren Maguire. She just needs to take some time to chill. So, do you, Gladdy? I don't have anything against you as a person. I just think you're possibly corrupt and definitely inept as a leader. So, like, but I don't hate you as a person. You go have some tea, hang out with the cousins.
Yeah. Just go girl boss that shit.
Yeah. Just go hang out in your sort of Northern Beaches mansion or wherever it is you live, and just like have a good time not being in our lives at all. Just really live it up. I want you to just have an excellent time
And 10 more minutes.
in private life. And 10 more minutes.
But yes, I think she will. She'll go off into the sunset for a little bit and then come back on her horse. So I guess the only segue here is that there's another Liberal member. He is Liberal, isn't he?
Yes.
So
Andrew Laming.
So it's
Andrew
Andrew
Laming
Laming's
is Liberal.
staffer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But
I'm just
Liberal
segueing.
MPs
Andrew Laming
stuff.
is a Liberal MP, isn't he? Federal MP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, could
Yeah,
you
so
imagine
he-
if he was a Green? It's just like the guy's doing taking photos of people's bums when they're bending over. Apparently, he's a Green. He really believes in climate change and saving photos of people's asses.
Yeah.
No. He's a Liberal. So, a taxpayer-funded staffer for federal MP Andrew Laming, Barclay.
It's interesting. Are any staffers for federal MPs not taxpayer funded?
I guess
This seems like a weird designation to put there. Like, if you're a staffer for a political, like an elected official, I'm assuming our taxes pay the salary. right?
I do wonder if maybe there's probably a certain like threshold of like here's the taxpayer funded resources that you get for staffing, and then maybe some ministers have additional staffing over and above that they pay out of pocket. I think that is a thing that
Right.
could exist. So I think maybe what the
This
Guardian.
is the same thing we were talking about the other week, where it's like you can have a staffer and then you have an electorate, taxpayer-funded electorate officer. So their job is to serve the people of your seat doing stuff for that member.
and that's what people were doing. Like, but they never showed up to work, and then
Yes,
just clearly
that's
someone's
why it was-
mate's getting a paycheck for no work.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, I'm on
So
board.
this guy,
Anyway.
this guy here
So
is
the-
a taxpayer-funded.
The point is that he's there to serve the electorate, not
Yes.
the member specifically, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the member obviously is the person that he'd be reporting to, but yeah, I mean, his
But
work should be.
what I'm saying is
associated
that staffer is like a permanent part of the civil service, right? Whereas the ministers and their staffers change over the top.
Yes.
Am I understanding that
Well,
correctly, or have I
yeah.
made that up?
Yeah, I mean, he's employed by
By Laming.
Laming, but it's funded through taxpayer funding, so he would probably quit. You know, the next member that got in would bring their own staff in, but
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
his job has to be to send out the wonderful newsletter you get once a month that goes straight in the bin that everyone doesn't read.
I love that you
Yeah.
think we get a physical newsletter rather than an email.
I love.
Anyway, this guy Barclay McGain, which I don't know. I wonder if he's got a middle name because it just the name fits.
McGain.
McGain, you've done McGain, you've done it again.
And done it again. He has.
So he has posed this staffer has posed with a paintball style toy assault rifle, dressed and acquitted as Kyle Rittenhouse, the teenager who shot dead 2 Black Lives Matter protesters and was recently acquitted of all criminal charges.
And injured a third.
And injured a third, yeah. So it doesn't take much, as it turns out, to dress like Kyle Rittenhouse. You're just wearing, green t-shirt, jeans, and blue gloves with an assault rifle. But it's a look. It's definitely a recognizable look.
It's definitely a look. Looking at that picture as well. Like, I know they say, oh, it's a paintball gun or whatever. That looks like a fucking assault rifle.
Yeah, it looks
so-
legit.
Like,
It's
it
probably,
looks
it's probably
legit.
it's probably a gel balling rifle.
If you
I
were
could talk to
walking-
you for hours about this, but
Like, if you were walking to a party or like a Halloween party or whatever dressed like that, and the police saw you, you're fucked. Like,
Yeah.
that looks like you are armed to the teeth.
so gel balling in Queensland, basically, you're allowed to have realistic looking top style toy guns. I think though you do have to keep them. Like
yeah, it's
in
the
a bag
reason
or
like why
something.
toy guns have the orange little bits on the end and shit, right? To be like, no, this like while okay, it could look a little realistic, that it has to designate that this is not a real firearm. But
So in,
that
in
looks
Victoria,
really legit.
you can't have them because they're for that exact reason. They look realistic. But in Queensland, where the land of the free exists,
Yes.
they can do what they want. It's actually a pretty big business now. There's a lot of money in that sport at the moment.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yes, he's got that photo. The thing that got me is that this isn't the first indiscretion he's had. So he
Can I just say
was-
before we move on to the previous indiscretion, this was for a belated Halloween party, which is not a thing. Can I?
what's
can I
the
just,
belated
like-
Halloween party?
Exactly. What the fuck is that? That's just like dressing up in November. Like that's not. That is not. a
Well,
thing.
I mean, George, to be fair, you are Captain Anti-dress up party.
No,
so...
I know, but like we all agree
Like, so,
that
yeah.
like Halloween parties happen either on Halloween or the nearest adjacent weekend to Halloween. And that is when Halloween
Yeah.
parties happen. If you have a party a week either side of Halloween, it's just a party. And it doesn't enable you it
It's a
doesn't
party and you're all dressed as scary things.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
just dressed as a murderer.
Yeah, you just rocked
At a
up dressed
party.
as a murderer to a party. And
I-
like not one of those fictional like this isn't like showing up as fucking Michael Myers or whatever. No, this a real
murder.
Yeah.
real person.
I just came
the
to
equivalent of
just
rocking
came
up
to a
as,
party
like-
and dressed up as Ted Bundy or
Yeah.
the Night Stalker. There's like, isn't it funny that this guy killed people? Anyway, wearing
Oh,
the
look,
chips.
I'm the Unibomber. Isn't this fun?
Hilarious.
Yeah, I'm the Unabomber.
So he.
Fucking
Now you think,
awful.
oh, okay, like everyone makes a mistake. Maybe his sense of humor is a bit whack. But here's the thing: 18 months ago, he was sacked from the same position he holds now
Mm.
because he posted a schoolies video that denigrated Indigenous Australians. And so
Cool.
he listened, he learned. Andrew Lamming hired him back,
Oh my god.
which we'll get to in a sec because that in itself is a whole thing.
What is that?
And
How
then-
much of a dearth of political
then-
talent is there in Queensland for Andrew Lamming to go like, the man knows how to send an email. We can't find
He's
anyone
just really
else.
good at
It's just really good. I know
photoshopping.
the thing with the Indigenous
So
kids
good.
and the blah blah blah, but like, like the man sends a memo, like, no, he can use Salesforce. Like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm
Yeah.
doing. You know, like I need his help. It has to be him.
Hey, I think this staffer fit into Adam's step plan though, because
Yes.
like the several step plans. It was 18 months ago he was sacked for posting this incredibly racist video, and then 6 months before this incident he was rehired. So do the maths in your head.
Mhm.
12-month wait happened. Slate's clean. Nah, you can come on back now. We've done the 12 months. Welcome back to your position in the political space. We're all good.
So Lamming has described McGain as an important asset to his office due to the staffer's youth connections.
Mm.
He's connected
Ah.
with them youths,
Mm.
guys.
Oh, good. The youth connection's great, but what youths is he connected to?
Yeah,
Is
Nazis.
where I
Yeah, Hitler
yeah,
youths.
yeah. Oh, great. Oh, cool, neat. Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
Actually,
that's
to be clear,
awesome.
I don't know where. I have no idea.
We
As a
don't
joke,
know.
I
That's-
Well, no, but it's like,
but
I mean, jump back. Schoolies video denigrating Indigenous Australians. So probably the youth is tied into people who like to denigrate Indigenous Australians. So to say, oh, you're connected to my base, Andrew, you are. I don't think you're saying what you think you're saying.
We have
Or-
two separate data points on this young man. One is that he thinks it's funny to denigrate Indigenous people, and the second is that he thinks it's funny to dress up as Carl Rittenhouse. So it's not a promising trajectory that we can draw from
No.
those two. Like this, these are all the things I know about you. You might have, it might be really good with kids. You might have a dog that he's very kind to. I don't know. I don't know all of these things, but based on the two pieces of information I know about you, it's not looking good.
this is the other thing, and it says a lot about Andrew Lamming, right? And what base Andrew Lamming's playing
Yes.
to. It's
What-
just that
What is your fucking judgment here? And they're like, yes, okay, you did the video, but like, you're really good with the youths. Apparently, there's no other young people who have youth connections to other youths.
But obviously, like Andrew Lamming has been, like he was in the news 12 months ago for the alleged upskirting, but then he had the response to it, which was like
'cause there was a whole thing about
what,
upskirting.
they weren't
and
wearing. They weren't
It
wearing
wasn't
a skirt.
upskirting,
It's
it
not
was-
upskirting. No.
a woman was bending
No.
over. I understood she was wearing like pants or jeans or something. She was bending over to load up a fridge, and he was taking a photo of her behind using the. And it was characterized. This is the level of discourse here in Australian politics. We're like, it wasn't a fucking upskirt, mate. Upskirt is when she's wearing a dress. Like,
Yeah, respect the craft.
said the government minister. Yeah, the craft of upskirting is a whole other discipline.
Just, yeah, all
Did
the
he end up
all the
suing
yeah.
someone? Like what happened?
I
there?
believe-
can't remember.
Yeah,
It was a whole thing.
cease and desist,
Yeah.
I think, were being sort of sent out. So I don't know if anyone was actually like, not like the Peter Dutton situation of actually going to court over it. But I think there was some strongly worded letters. They sent a letter saying how angry they are. And yeah, that was enough.
Yeah.
He's also Being one of those like
man.
very conservative members where he's been like, I think going after like vaccine stuff and various other things where he's been outspoken from the backbench. So
I mean, color me 0% surprised to hear that. Like, I don't believe, Tara Cash's greatest hits, fucking Andrew Lamming, cheap suit Magoo. Believe it or not, he's a bit of an anti-vaxxer. Yeah, I'm 0% surprised about that.
well, he's not necessarily an anti-vaxxer, but he's challenged the federal government, his own party, and he's also had a go at Atagi for the concept of a vaccine mandate, and
Okay,
there
so
should be a more
he's not
nuanced approach.
He's not an anti-vaxxer, but it doesn't sound like he's very pro-vaxxer either, does it?
No, and also I was just following one of the. I think I missed this happening. When was this? Back in October. Just a story of a quote from the Guardian here saying, "Unrepentant Liberal MP Andrew Lamming has withdrawn his apology to two Brisbane women over online comments that he previously acknowledged caused
that's
significant
right.
distress."
Forgot about
I
that.
must have missed this. But wait, so he said something, or said something offensive. I don't know what. Did an apology, and there's like, nah, you know what? Fuck you.
Fuck you. You
I
deserved it.
retract my apology. Eat shit, two Brisbane women.
Yeah, there was, if I recall correct now, I'm just doing this from memory, but yeah, there was some like allegations that he used these sock puppet accounts to sort of harass various women online, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, like it was a whole thing. But I guess I didn't realize you could take back an apology. You know what?
Well, yeah,
I'm
it's
not
like
sorry.
on Thursday, Lamming told Parliament the apology was intended only for those, quote, genuinely upset by his communication, and he now concluded none of his critics were genuine, unquote. So just be like, yeah, like, oh wait, you weren't really sad? I take back my apology then. It's like, all right, what are you basing that on, Andrew? Jesus.
So anyway, I mean, I guess this paints a picture of the electoral office of one member for Bowen, Andrew Lamming.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And just the staffer's photo thing of Carl Rittenhouse is fucking disgusting.
Terrible. I don't know.
It was accompanied
Just
by
like costume parties.
caption.
It's dumb.
It was. I love costume parties, but it's like, no, you don't. It's why, like, we talked about it ages ago. Well, not we, I mean, but like society. You don't rock up as Hitler to a Halloween party, right? Like, you can rock up as Pennywise the Clown. Yes, he eats children. But you don't rock up as actual, like figures who are evil.
But this is the thing. It's like, if it was just a party and you turned up dressed as fucking Genghis Khan, like, people would have questions. But Halloween gives people this like open, this permission structure to come and dress up as the most horrifying, inappropriate thing ever. And I think that's why how costume parties are dumb.
But it's usually in Halloween. It's like you physical, like, fictional scary things, or people come up with like
it's the one
clever,
time of the
silly
year
little things
when people think it's appropriate. Like, there's no other kind of time of the year. No one's going to Thanksgiving dressed up as, with a SWAT sticker on their arm. Like, it's the only time of the year where people are like, oh, maybe this is the time I could use it to, display my white nationalist credentials. Like, it's this weird time of year where it's just, I guess, people think it's okay to go and do this kind of dumb stuff. Costume parties are dumb, and I hate them. Thank you.
Costume parties are great. I love costume parties. Thank you for coming dressed to my 30th. I appreciate it. I know it was hard for you.
Why do we celebrate? I just don't understand why we don't. But like, why do people celebrate people like Kyle Rittenhouse, even if you think he should have been acquitted, which he shouldn't have been? Why like, he went and then like subsequently met with the president, and now like CPAC is going to be fucking, there was a great line from The Onion who said, like,
Kyle Rittenhouse met with the president?
Yeah, you didn't see that? He gave him a fucking medal or something. It was wild.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you meant like post the acquittal, and I was like, he met with Biden? What are you talking about?
No.
You mean Trump after he did the shootings? Right, all right. Yeah, gotcha. All right. I understand now. That makes perfect sense.
And yeah, isn't it wild that makes sense?
I'm not surprised anymore.
But it's like, why are we celebrating a guy? Like, even if you think it was legal and it was legally justified, this guy killed 2 people, and that's a massive tragedy. Like, even if it's your side of politics and you think it's right, or that it was legal that it happened, Like, the guy killed
Yeah.
2 people and injured a third. It's obviously a terrible tragedy and an awful thing.
Well,
and
but
conservatives
George,
are like, fuck yeah, he did it.
yeah, but George, the people who were killed and injured were Black Lives Matter protesters,
Yeah, but like,
which they I don't know. I think people of this ilk. I don't know McGain and all that sort of stuff, but I feel people of that ilk. That is something to be like, yeah.
why are we celebrating
fuck
that?
'em. Like,
Like, even if it was illegal that he killed himself, it is still awful that 2 people were murdered. Like, it's still a bad thing that people died
that's the thing.
as a result.
Yes,
Like, even if you think he was
agree.
legally justified, it's this person is not a person who should then be celebrated and dressed up on as Halloween and meet with the president and get a fucking medal. Like, it is.
Yeah.
it
He's
is
kind of become like a martyr for the far right.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, George. You're absolutely right, and I feel you just need to substitute in your sentence of he killed 2 people, replace people with like the enemy, as far as a lot of these people think.
I just don't.
Of
I can't
that they're
understand
these
that. It's 2
politically
human
correct
beings.
lefty. Yeah, no,
2
yeah,
human
that's not.
beings
Yeah.
died. It is a tragedy.
can't-
Whether, like, no matter
Yeah.
where your political beliefs are along the spectrum, or whether you think it was legally justified or not, like, humans died. And, like, generally, in my experience, when humans die, that's a bad thing, no matter what side of politics they're on.
Yep, I absolutely agree. But that's the thing. We can't get into that mindset because we are not these wackadoos.
Anyway, I thought it'd be hilarious to dress up as Stalin. Like, what?
Great
I
guy.
just don't fucking understand.
But would you dress up as like leader, like, you know, or awful Stalin, or smoke show young Stalin?
Young
seen
Stalin?
Young
Smoke show.
Stalin?
Smoke so I can't do the word properly.
Are you
Smoke
still
show.
drunk, Adam?
Could be. The longer the show goes on, the drunker I feel. I don't know.
Drunker I feel.
Before,
Yeah.
pre-atrocity Stalin was like it was I think he would have been a bit of a lady
He could get
killer.
it.
He has a strong
He could
mustache.
get
He
it.
could get it. Exactly
Yeah.
right.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, also the photo that this Andrew Laming staffer put up was also included the caption, quote, Kyle Rittenhouse on neighborhood watch duties in Brisbane South tonight. So you can kind of see what he was going for there, and yeah, the implications of that are incredibly awful and fucked.
Cool.
He's a silly
yeah.
goose.
Nah, you know, my partner's a silly goose. This guy's awful.
I just kind of feel like sometimes on the show we're like, you know, we're sort of being careful what we say. We're trying not to defame people. We're trying to be responsible. Like, we don't want to, you know, we don't want to endanger our jobs. Like, all of us have day jobs. And this guy's just like, I'll dress up as Kyle Rittenhouse. That'll be fucking hilarious.
Fuck it.
Like,
Let's
it's just
just
like,
go
are we
with it.
trying
Let's do
too
it.
hard? Are we, like, maybe we're just working too hard to be like reasonable, sane people.
Yeah.
And other people are just like, yeah, I'm going to fucking dress up as Kyle Rittenhouse. You know, I was going to go as Hitler, but I thought, let's go fucking Kyle Rittenhouse. That's way more topical.
Yeah.
And this guy still has a job. Like, apparently nothing matters. Nothing matters? Nothing matters. Okay, cool.
Nothing matters.
Well, this will probably matter in that Evergrande, which we talked about last week, the Chinese property developer, they have officially
I'm pretty sure it's
missed their payment.
Evergrande.
Evergrande.
No? I don't.
No, it's got an E at the end, so it has to be Evergrande.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they didn't want us to say it like Evergrande, they would have spelled it differently.
It's just, I feel like Evergrande makes more sense for a Chinese
But it's got an
company.
E at the end of it, so it has to be said with flair,
Okay.
with a roll of the tongue.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, far be it from me.
Grande.
Yeah, far be it from me, Adam, to stomp on your flair. That's a famous part of the Adam Doreen personality, cult personality that you built around yourself. So,
I know, very, very flairful.
full of flair.
Basically, flair.
Flair?
Flairful? Is it definitely a word? Somewhere?
Sure, why not? Yeah, but so they defaulted on the debt that we were talking about.
So it
the
happened,
other week.
And the fallout is, I mean, they've defaulted on their debt according to one ratings company. So there's credit ratings companies throughout the world. One of them, Fitch Ratings, has downgraded their credit worthiness, and basically said, "Well, no, you haven't paid. You know, due to these things that you were meant to hit, you haven't done that, so you've defaulted on it."
Yeah, turns out
Yeah,
if you don't pay your bills for several months, it's counted as a default.
yeah, it becomes a problem. Yeah, because I think the way they phrased it in here was like the payments themselves were due about a month ago, but there's a grace period where it's not just an immediate. So that's actually kind of funny. It's like, all right, they're due then, and then there's a grace period that then lapsed this past Monday. So really, this past Monday was the deadline.
I mean,
Yeah.
Because there's a hard deadline of the past Monday. It's like, we have a grace period. It's like, well, no, then that's the deadline, isn't it?
it's the sort of
If I can still hand in the assignment, it's not overdue yet.
it's the sort of thing where additional consideration is given for large multi-trillion-dollar companies that may not otherwise get extended to an individual submitting an assignment at university.
I think they're exactly the same, George. I don't know what you're talking about.
Fair enough. The company has about $300 billion in total liabilities, and it's obviously if more ratings agencies decide that this is in fact a default, which pretty clearly is. And this has a sort of cascading effect into other areas of the Chinese economy, other kinds of similar property developers who also own money and have built vast wealth on cheap interest rates and this building bubble. If they're in a similar position that they can't pay back their debts, it's going to have a whole cascading effect. It's going to be bad.
I do wonder, like, whether or not, like, because at some point the people that have lent the money would have to come asking for it, like, and they'll have to take security on something, right? They'll start seizing back assets or whatever it might be.
The problem
But
is,
I'm just wondering,
in a
like, if that
scenario
doesn't
like that,
happen,
where a company collapses, all of a sudden your assets are worth fucking nothing. So it's like, it's going to be.
well, they've still got liquidity though. They've still got cash there, apparently, so they're still operating. The issue is that the one thing that I'm wondering is, like,
who's gonna buy a home from Evergrande now? Like, who's gonna give them more cash at this point and be like, I'm sure you'll still be around in 2 years. Like, it does kind of, the thing with the rating agencies saying it's a default is that basically that in itself ends the company, because like the confidence in the market is completely gone, and there's no way of recovering it from that point. I mean, it was basically gone at that that because everyone knew that that's what was going to happen. They knew that there were these repayments that they needed to make and they hadn't been made. So that in itself doesn't inspire confidence. But like the fact that a rating agency has called it is kind of a death knell, if that makes sense. So I don't see how it's recoverable from this point unless they get some sort of foreign. There is no foreign funding large enough to. It's not like you just go to like, some sort of venture capitalist fund and get an injection of cash and sort of like figure things out later. Like, you can't do any of that because the amounts that we're talking about here are just gargantuan. Like $300 billion in total liabilities is more than the total value of like even some of the largest companies. Yeah, entire countries.
Yeah, Greece is sitting there going, ooh.
yeah. I'll give you one Greece for it.
Because that's the thing, like back in 2008, there were bailouts for countries that were around this amount. Obviously, they're not necessarily going to. I don't think that, as we discussed last week, the Chinese government may not bail them out. Might let them sink. I just wonder whether or not the people that they've lent money to will be able to actually do anything as recourse to take that money back. I don't know how that works. Like, are they just going to say, well, you owe us the money, and then Evergrande will just be like, okay,
come get it.
And then, basically, and then that situation just persists for 12 months where like,
and it's also
I don't
like,
know, how's that work?
People go, oh, who cares what's happening over in China? But it's like, who do you think is selling them the steel in order to build all of these huge apartment buildings? Like, that's us. Like, it's, like.
Oh, the ye old, like, thing that people always said. They were like, oh, look at it. Oh, made in China. Like, what happens in China is a really big deal. For the world economy, because of the way that we have, they've been they've been exploiting people and manufacturing and things like that, and then all of us capitalizing on that, right?
Have tied our economies into that system, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's other issues in China at the moment as well, with like energy issues and various things as well. So I mean, I don't know how that all plays in together, but. It's one to watch. Probably don't go making any large investments in Chinese property at this point, or any property for that matter.
Not an investment. Adam's ramblings do not constitute investment advice. We'd like to stipulate he's a fucking idiot. Please don't listen to him.
Well, yeah, I mean, Channel 7, who the article that I've posted is from them, they've talked about how it's going to affect the Australian property market, especially in Sydney. But I mean, I feel like it was just more of a beat up of like, oh, you can still buy in Australia now; it'll be okay. Just look out for it, because the local news channels are, famous for propping up, like Channel 9's tied in with Domain, for God's sake, like.
There's my
Anyway.
my brother-in-law who bought a family home recently described it as a Ponzi scheme, like the housing market, and I was like, yeah, you're not wrong, but it's a Ponzi scheme that we all keep buying into and have to keep buying into. So it's like
Forever.
it's not a Ponzi scheme if it keeps going up forever. Like, it's kind of what it is. It's this weird sort of everyone, all the institutions will do everything they can. They will lower interest rates. They will, drop their pants on interest rates and other, to keep this bubble, to keep this thing going, because like everyone loses too much if it pops. Yeah. And so all the institutions, be it, Reserve Bank, banking sector, government, even down to like media and like like all of the financial interests stack up in terms of keeping this thing going, because A, it's the main engine of growth in our economy, and B, like it's the main way of building wealth as well. So like if the property bubble pops, we're all fucking cooked. So they will do everything they can to keep it going. So yes, it's a Ponzi scheme, but it's one that's been successfully trundling along for 100 years. So it's the longest running Ponzi scheme. So that must make it the best Ponzi scheme, I guess.
Gentlemen, do you know who else loves a Ponzi scheme?
Alfred Ponzi.
Alfred Ponzi does love a Ponzi.
Of the House Ponzi.
Was it Alfred Ponzi? I think that was his name, something like that. He was an
I thought you were
Italian
doing your
con man from back in the day. That's where Ponzi scheme comes from.
Ah, there we go.
Oh, there you go. We learned something today. I didn't know that. There you go. I was going to say Vladimir Putin loves a Ponzi scheme. I don't actually know if he loves a Ponzi scheme, but he loves, some, what do they call it, where you wag the keys over here.
Charles Ponzi, not Alfred.
Charles Ponzi.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is Vladimir Putin is trying to make excuses for reasons to invade Ukraine. I don't know whether that's not really a Ponzi scheme, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, I imagine Vladimir Putin just sitting there, just blasting blurred lines from Robin Thicke, just looking at Ukraine going, I know you want it. I know you want it.
It's funny because there's been a couple of articles that have come out recently talking about, because basically how this all happened, like last week, Russia just moved like 100,000 troops to their border with Ukraine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, as you do, just for fun. I just like to move my troops around, just, reshuffle them a bit, like they're your Warhammer display. I just move a platoon over there, move a platoon over there. This looks cool. Like, look at the modeling work I've been doing. I've detailed these soldiers really well, haven't I?
You got to appreciate the detail on this tank. I mean, and there's several thousand of them. So, right here on the border. Yeah, so and there's people saying that there have been reports that it's not just the kind of troop movements that you would put in place if you were just trying to.
No, they're mobilizing.
It sounds like they are actually mobilizing, like other kinds of material, equipment, like medical, facilities. Like people are looking at trains and like filming them, going like, "That's some serious shit that they're moving up." It's not just a show of force. It seems like they could actually be wanting to deploy. Which is
one intel report says they'd be ready to go by January, early January. I mean, they may well be ready to go before then. The fact is that there have been, like, they're not meant to be, because let's just context. Ukraine's had a civil war that's been going for years after Russia annexed Crimea. This is the other thing. Russia's already had a go at it. They annexed Crimea back in 2014. Then there was that civil war between the East and West, although the eastern areas, which are predominantly Russian speaking, were heavily backed by Russian forces. They're not meant to be there, but they're basically there.
Russian-backed separatists, which are just
the Russians
without the patches. It's Yevgeny wearing his Adidas track pants instead of his fucking military uniform, but like undoubtedly fucking Russians, right? Like no question.
So, you know, I guess the thing is like, where has this come from? Like, because I mean, obviously the civil war's been going for a while, and it's kind of at a stalemate. There's been a ceasefire in place for about 12 months, I think, or maybe a bit longer than that. Although both sides don't really keep to it, they will shoot each other. There's been
Oh,
several
fun.
tens of thousands of people that have died in this conflict up till now. But what's weird is that this Putin all of a sudden sounds like he's gagging for another bite at the apple, so to speak. Now, and why would he do that? Like,
Why
what
now?
possible reason would he want to go to Ukraine? Economically, it doesn't really make sense. He's got a major contract with Germany for a gas pipeline going in. If he gets more, like, economically, he'll get the shit sanctioned out of him by the West, which is what's basically been said that will happen. And this is the other thing that concerned me, was that the West were like, well, we're not going to fight you on it. Like, we'll give Ukraine some guns, but we're not going to like counter invade and try and protect them. So if you want to do it, like, I guess you can, but we're going to like economically fuck you, basically. So for Putin, from an economic standpoint, it doesn't make sense for him to invade. But Putin's not doing this, according to some of these think pieces that have been put out there. He's not doing it because it's strategic. He's doing it because he's got this warped fucking ideology around Ukraine. He literally has a hard-on for it. And he keeps talking about, in various speeches,
Really?
he's ramping
Literally.
it up over the last month. Ramping it right up, just getting it up there.
Oh, it was
He's
more
been-
that you said he literally had a hard on.
Literal
for it. I was like,
physical
I
erection.
wasn't aware that you had like a weather report to the goings on of Putin's penis.
Well, he's just been talking about his love of Ukraine and the concept that, and it kind of goes back to Russian history as well, that Ukraine traditionally, up until I guess the fall of the Soviet Union, was part of Russia, whether it be the Russian Empire or whether it be the Soviet Union. Same thing with Kazakhstan as well.
And apparently Ukraine was a real engine for growth in the Soviet Union. Like it was a very productive area in terms of the economy there as well. So it's been and like we've famously, Putin's described the fall of the Soviet Union as the worst thing to happen in the history of the 20th century. And I was like, you've read about 20th century like Soviet Union history, haven't you? Like there's a lot. There's a
He's a
lot.
former-
20th century was a busy time for that sector of the world. Like, and we're saying the
I mean, he was
splitting
a
up
former
was
KGB officer, so
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a very warped perspective on it. But I mean, from his perspective, what he's doing now is trying to rationalize the emotional attachment that Russia has to that region. And what he said recently, like literally yesterday, he's talked about trying to find reasons to invade. I guess he's saying, "Oh, look, the people have Russia-phobia at the moment, and there's discrimination against Russian speakers beyond Russia's borders, and that particularly in those who live in the east."
And what we're
part
going to
of-
do
of
to
Ukraine
allay
in the
those
Donbass
fears
region.
that people have about Russians is we're going to invade their fucking countries.
Yeah.
That will really ingratiate us to them, I think.
He's basically said that the war in the country's east looks like genocide. So therefore, if there's genocide, the Russians will come in and definitely not commit more genocide.
Let's create a problem and then use our military to solve the problem that we created.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty large section of the two areas are it's the Donbass region basically, but the separatists basically hold about half of the two states or provinces of I can't pronounce them properly, Donetsk
Donetsk and Luhansk.
Luhansk.
I'm gonna guess. Like,
Yep. So, whether or not they're planning just another land grab for those particular regions to bring them back into the fold, whether or not it will go further and further into the Ukrainian territory, I'm not sure.
I just don't
But-
understand. It's not like the late 1800s anymore. Like you can't just like seize territory and just be like, and it's mine now. And all that's in there is mine. And because there's no League of Nations yet or no United Nations or anything like that, you're just going to have to trade with us and people are going to do it out of their own economic self-interest and everything's going to be great and we're going to be more wealthy because we've acquired more land. That's not how it works. Like, as you say, there's going to be sanctions, there's going to be retaliation, there's going to be it is inevitably worse for Russia to undertake an action like this than it would be.
I mean, unless he knows something that
not.
we don't, which was there's quite a strong
I was going
possibility
to say,
of that.
I would 100% guarantee he knows something we don't, because it's Putin.
It's Putin.
He's
But,
listening.
Well, people
From
always
a-
describe him as like a tactician, not a strategist. Like he knows enough to be dangerous, right? To cause issues, to cause friction, to maybe take advantage of some uncertainty that he's created. But I don't think he's like playing 12D chess and everyone else is playing checkers. Like I don't he's not really that. Like it's just not. Russia's the size of Italy in terms of its economy. Like it's not the superpower that it once was. It's not like there's some massive play and we're gonna just brand the builder the whole time. Like I just don't. There's no big reveal here to be had. He's not some like genius strategist, is what I'm saying. He's thinking like 3 or 5 steps ahead, and he wants to take advantage of the uncertainty that he creates. And that's probably beneficial for him over time, but I don't think he's really thought out the long-term second, third order consequences of what he's doing here.
Yeah. I mean, they've only just started to recover from the 2014 sanctions that were put on Russia after the Crimea expansion. I don't know. I mean, they get a little bit more access to the Black Sea, I think, out of it if they were to take these areas. But it just, yeah. I mean, I just find it weird that he's so romantically and there's got to be other people in Russia or on his side that are thinking the same way, which is probably they're probably in an echo chamber, bouncing all these ideas off each other. I don't understand this fascination.
I can't imagine Putin ever being in a room that's not an echo chamber. Could you imagine challenging Putin's thoughts?
Oh, I don't
Yes,
know
sir.
about
Yes,
that,
sir.
Vlad. Yeah, I don't think so, mate. I don't
Yeah,
think
just
that's
like-
exactly...
just
where are you
like-
taking me? Huh? Where's it?
Yeah, it's like, I think we should annex Crimea. I was like, oh, is that such a good idea? And then, hey, have you seen Yuri?
I haven't seen
Where's he
Yevgeny in
gone?
ages. I think it
Good
disappeared
ex-
after the first season. He was in it, and then he just kind of
We'll
disappeared.
just be like,
They never
yeah,
explained it.
you
A good
seen Yuri?
example-
No one named Yuri ever worked here. What are you talking about?
Huh?
A good example of why Ukraine is so special is that Kazakhstan is the other example, which used to be part of the Russian Empire, but Kazakhstan they don't seem to give a shit about. Like Kazakhstan now trades more with Beijing than it does with Russia.
Because
Right.
it's shit
And-
poor. They don't have anything that they want, right?
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about stirring up nationalist sentiment.
It also seems to be that, there's this. He keeps blaming NATO for encroaching onto Russia's traditional sphere of influence. But, I mean, part of the whole reason why the Civil War kicked off was because Ukraine wanted to join the European Union back in 2014.
But
Which-
the only reason that they want to join the European Union is because they're freaking out over Russia's expansionist ambitions. Like, if Russia was just chill, I feel like the cause of so many of Russia's problems is Russia, where they're just like, the whole idea presupposes of NATO and Russia sort of being at odds with each other, presupposes that there's still 2 superpowers that are dueling, as though the Cold War never ended. But it's like everyone else is just happy to be part of the global order and make fat stacks. And Russia's over here going like the Japanese guy that's been stuck on the island who doesn't realize the war finished 30 years ago. He's still fighting it and everyone's moved on.
It's funny because if you go back, just after the Cold War finished, the Russian relations with the West were actually pretty good. Apparently, around the Clinton era, it all sort of shifted because basically Russia was like, well, Soviet Union doesn't exist. Why is NATO still hanging out? And at that point, I think, particularly Putin, he got a bit pissed off because NATO didn't dissolve, right? NATO's whole purpose was to stop the Soviet Union.
Well,
It didn't dissolve.
just as well
It
it
actually
didn't.
expanded. It actually expanded, took on those small states, former Soviet states like Latvia and all those kind of countries. And so as far as Putin saw, he thinks that NATO were the ones that thought the war never finished. And so a lot of this animosity can be traced back to that sort of early 90s where it was like, why don't you guys put down your guns? And then
Why don't
NATO
you put
didn't.
down your
And so,
guns?
yeah. And then here we are again.
Yeah, it seems like
The
I
problem
might
is-
need some guns. I'm going to get some more guns.
So like it's the sins of the father in some ways, but it's yeah, I don't know. If they invade, like, there's not going to be a world war because the West has already said we don't really feel like getting involved. But for Russia, like, if you're a Russian, just a middle class Russian, like, if your bank accounts, or not bank accounts, but if your business's ability to trade or do whatever you need to do is all of a sudden frozen because Putin wanted to go and fucking stick his dick in Ukraine,
Yeah.
like how is that good for Russia? I don't know.
It's good for Putin. Here's the thing: stirring up nationalist sentiment is good for an authoritarian leader. I really do think it is as simple as that. It really is just like a wag the dog type situation. It's the second time we mentioned it on this podcast today. But like, I think it really comes down to my domestic political support is waning. My support is only at 60%, and that's with my bullshit fluffed up fucking, dictator numbers. So maybe, we got to do something. We got to invade somewhere, get people like riled up about fucking Mother Russia. And that's what I mean when I say he's a tactician. He's not a strategist. That's a short-term salve, right? That'll work for like 3 or 4 years. But then after 20 years of war, like a bunch of Russians are going to look around and say like, hey, I've lost family members and our economy's in the toilet and I don't think this is helping. like it's a good short-term solution, but like how long can that realistically go? Like the pains of that are going to actually be felt at some point. And I don't think it's going to be a good ending for Putin when it does.
I mean, America's now feeling, the effects of 20 years of war where they've got increased partisanship and, a strain on the sort of the fabric of the nation, not probably from an economic perspective, but certainly from like a...
Well, I mean, inflation, everyone's all freaked out about 6% inflation that they had compared to, this time last year. And, there are economic concerns over in the States as well. But yeah, it's the thing I think that prevents political violence in the States is the ability to vote the guy out. Right? If you don't like what's happening, democracy is kind of like a self-correcting mechanism there as you kind of oscillate back and forth from one idiot to the other idiot. And so you don't feel as though that rage doesn't build up like it might otherwise
unless you're
do.
President Kennedy, in which case...
Well...
Yeah,
there's other instances of political violence we could point to.
Dark.
Yeah, thanks for finishing the podcast on that extremely grim note, Adam.
No.
Hey, remember when Reagan got shot? Let's go through a greatest hits of all the political violence of the American 20th century. I do think democracy is one of the things that prevents that kind of pressure from building up too much because you exercise your will at the ballot booth rather than needing to go into the street and start whipping out the guillotines. Or at least that's how it's traditionally worked until January 6th of this year. But yeah. I don't think it's going to end well for Putin. I think it's going to be like one of those Gaddafi type situations where the country just like falls to shit and he gets, stabbed in the street. Like
maybe.
I think that I could definitely, and I think dictators know that. And that's why they keep such a stranglehold on power, because them keeping power and staying in charge and keeping the house of cards going is the only thing that prevents them from getting stuck, like with a knife. Like it's one of those sort of dangerous, it's like Heisenberg in Breaking Bad. It's like you need to keep getting bigger and stronger. If you're not growing, you're the one who's being encroached against. I think it's that mentality that he has.
Really a metaphor for capitalism.
On that note, we have been, we are, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. It's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe to our podcast. Give us 5 stars on your podcatcher of choice. It helps people find the show. And you know what? Tell a friend, a single friend. You may only have one. Tell a friend about the show and beg them, nay, insist that they listen. Slide their phone out of their bag while they're in the bathroom. Subscribe to the podcast while they're not watching. Don't do that.
Have you done that?
No. And make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And follow us all to. Oh, I've just got a notification. Vladimir Putin has an erection. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
Where'd the bell sound come from?
My bell.